For this last lesson of this chapter on scope rules, we're going to talk about nested scope, or what's also called lexical scope. So let's start a program. We'll call it nested.py. Since nested is the term that Python programmers use, lexical scope is more of a functional programming term. The idea behind nested scope is that when you define a function, and then you define a function inside a function, then the function inside the function, the nested function, will have access to the variables of the outer function. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Here we're going to define the hypotenuse for a right triangle. And to do that, we need to compute the square of each side. So we're going to put the definition of square inside the definition of hypotenuse. Then we'll finish off the definition of hypotenuse after we've defined square. So we square S1 plus the square of S2. So the hypotenuse is the square root of the square of side 1 plus the square of side 2. Now to make all this work, we also have to import the math library to get at the square root function. The square root function is right here. So notice that square is going to have access to S1 and S2 right here and right here. And that's the idea behind nested scope. With that, let's write a little program to test our function. So we're going to get the length of each of the two sides. Then we'll compute the hypotenuse, calling the function. And then we'll display it. So let's save and run the program. So we'll say the length of side 1 is 3, the length of side 2 is 4, and that gives us a hypotenuse of 5. So again, looking at the program, or looking at the function especially, the function definition, we see that using nested scoping rules or lexical scoping rules, a function defined inside another function can have access to the variables defined in the function at a higher level. So square has access to S1 and S2 because of the nesticle scoping rules. So with that, we're finished with this brief chapter on scoping, and we're ready to move on to the single exercise for the chapter.